Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go through the review slides. I do realize that some people probably are just getting home from school and haven't had a chance to get there yet. As people join the session, I'll go ahead and pause and give everybody an opportunity. So the first test you're going to take is the Unit 1 Analyzing Numbers test. And we started off the unit by doing some estimating number problems. For example, one of the first problems you did was estimating a crowd, then you estimated how many tennis balls were fitting in a room. One of the questions they asked you to do was a Fermi question. A Fermi question is when you are given a question where you have to make an estimate of something very large. And so what happens is, for example, here we have how many adults would fit inside a Phillips Arena. So what the Fermi question does is you want to determine what kind of assumptions would you have to make in order to answer that question. So an example here is that you would need to know the size of the arena, the size of the adults that are in the arena, as well as if there were only adults in the arena. And this would be important, of course, because small children might take up less room. And so you'd have to know uh, that as well. All right, so the next thing we did was a lot of estimating large numbers using the counting principle. This example here says a license plate in New York is created using a combination of 7 digits. Now this is very important. Digits, there are 10 digits, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A lot of people forget that there are actually 10 digits and not just 9 digits. And slash or letters. So the letters of your alphabet are A through Z, which are 26 letters. So it says here the first three spaces are numbers and the last 4 spaces are letters. Since it doesn't eliminate any repetition, we just do digit, 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 and then letter, 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 4 letters in a row. So that would be 10 times 10 times 10 for my digits, and then 26 times 26 times 26 times 26. So that gives me an estimated 456,976,000 different possibilities for license plates. The next question is working off this same idea of the license plate, except we change it up a little and we add some restrictions. Here the restriction says using the same setup to determine how many license plates can be created if no digit can be repeated. So when we go to set this up, we still have digit, 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 letter, 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 letter. The exception here though now is that your digits, there are 10 possibilities for the first digit, but since we can't do any repeats, that's going to give me 9 possibilities for the second digit and 8 possibilities for the third digit. My letters still will be letter, letter, letter. So that's 332,022,720 possibilities. And then this last example having to do with the counting principle. This all comes from lesson 1 and 2, is using the same setup to determine how many license plates could be determined if digits cannot be repeated and you cannot use the letters L, O, or Q. So you want to start off with the same setup, D, 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 L, 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 except now you're going to have 10 possibilities for your first digit, 9 possibilities for your second digit, 8 possibilities for your third digit, and then all of your letters will have 23 possibilities since we're going to take out these 3 letters of the alphabet, leaving you with 201,485,520 different possibilities. All right, next we get into the television problem. The television problem are your ratio problems, finding width, height. Here I have an older TV, which is a 40-inch TV. Remember, the 40-inch represents the diagonal on the TV. Has an aspect ratio of 4:3, and it wants me to find the area. So in order to do this problem, there's several steps that are involved. You want to take your aspect ratio, which is 4x, and you're going to square that, plus 3x, square that, and that should equal 40 squared. So 4x squared plus 3x squared, that gives me 25x squared, and that 40 squared is 1600. So when I solve, I get x. X is the common constant. So to calculate my width is 4 times x, so that's 32 inches. My height is 3 times x, so that's 24 inches. And the area would be width times height, which is 768 square inches. Next is the tire problem. Here I have two tires. I have one tire that is P255 70R17. And then the next tire is a larger tire. It's 270 80R17. Remember that R17 represents your rim. First thing I'm asked to find out is the width in millimeters, the aspect ratio, the height, the diameter, and the circumference of the tire. So the width of the tire comes directly from the actual coating on the tire. So the 255 represents the width of my first tire, and 270 is the width of my second tire. My aspect ratio also comes from the labeling on the tire. My first tire has an aspect ratio of 70, and my next tire has an aspect ratio of 80. The next thing you want to determine is the height in inches of the tire. Now that height of the tire actually only represents that distance basically of the not including, it's just if this were, this is my tire, this is the ring, this is your height of your tire. So to find that height of your tire, you want to set up a ratio that involves your aspect ratio and your millimeters. You can then figure out what the height is in millimeters, and then you have to convert it to inches. So you want to go ahead, you may want to review some of those calculations there. Make sure that you know how to do those conversions. So make sure that when you calculate your height, you do it in inches. Your diameter is always 2 times the height plus the rim. So that's going to be, in this first case, 2 times 6.89 plus your rim is what we also get from the coating on the tire, which was 17. So I have a diameter of 30.78 on my first tire. And of course, you do the calculations the same. Tire 2 has a diameter of 34. The last thing is circumference. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter. So you want to go ahead and take that diameter of the tire that you've gotten and multiply it by pi. And you definitely want to make sure that you use the pi button on your calculator so that you don't estimate or round off too soon. All right, so next we have a tire problem at once, and we're using these same tires from the previous problem, except now it wants to know what's the actual travel that how far have you really gone. In order to do this, you need to find the K value. The K value is the circumference of the larger tire divided by the circumference of the smaller tire. So in this particular case, that meant that I take the circumference of the second tire, which is 106.81, and I want to go ahead and divide that by the circumference of the smaller tire, which is 96. This gives me a K value, a constant value of K.102. I multiply that by the number of miles that my odometer reads, and that tells me what my actual miles are. All right, so here we have the same thing. It says here you want to switch tires, okay? So I'm switching from this original tire to the other one, and you want to find all of these values, find the actual distance, and then find the speed of, so we're focused here on what would the speed be for if I was going 45 miles. Now remember, we had a K factor of 1.102. I take that and multiply it by my 45. So the actual speed in which I'm traveling is 49.59 miles per hour. All right, weighted averages. Weighted averages, you want to determine what your grade is. So to do a weighted average, you need to know the percent of each category. And by the way, all those percentages need to be converted to decimals in your calculations. So we have test at 45%, so we're going to represent that as 0.45. Your test average is 72. We add that to the quiz percentage, which is 0.25, and I have a 75 quiz average. Add that to my homework percentage, which is 0.15, a homework average of 55, and then finally your final exam, which is 0.15, and you make a 67 on the final exam. So that would give you an average of 69.45, which unfortunately is not enough to pass the class. Now here it's saying determine the grade that you would need to make on the final if you wanted to have a grade average of 75. So we're going to use all the same numbers from the previous problem, and we're going to go ahead and calculate what we would need to make on the final exam in order for our average to calculate out to 75. So here I set this first part of the problem up the same. The difference is here. I'm going to do 15% times x, and I'm going to set it equal to 75. And then I simply solve for x. X is going to equal 8.41. And then the next step, oops, that problem was not finished. Okay, I just saw error here on this worksheet, so I'm going to go ahead and correct that. This, when you take 0.15 and you divide it into, I'm not sure where this 1.16 comes, but it should be 0.15x is equal to 15.6. Okay, go ahead and erase that and make it come out just a little bit better. So I'm going to have 0.15, this part here is wrong, I'm not sure where that came from. X is equal to 15.6. So when you solve for x, you would have to make 104 on the final exam in order for you to make a 75 in the class. So sorry about that. Hopefully that will work out. All right, next is your identification numbers and telling if something is valid or not using a UCP and also on the credit card problems. Here it says you're going to use a 313131. Here's your code. It says if it is not valid, determine the check digit. So first of all, you're going to take 3 times all of the odd placement values. So that's the 2, 4, 3, 5, 2, 2. And you're going to add up all those together and multiply it by 3. Then everything that's in an even place, you're just going to add those values up together. When you do that, that gives you 76. Since this is equal to, or this does not, 76 does not end in a 0, that means that it is not valid. So in order to make it a valid value, what you need to do is take 76, which is the total you got, subtract the last digit, which gives you 73, and you would have to change that last digit to the value of 7 in order to ensure that it was a valid code. All right, in addition to this recording, I'm also attaching a worksheet that has all of these problems just blank so you can kind of go through them and practice them before your test. If you do have any questions, feel free to text or email me. Tomorrow I'm going to be visiting, I believe it is Milton High School all day, so I may not be available directly during the day, but I will be answering questions via text or email. All right. Have a good afternoon.